The one person in the chat who voiced some dissent about bombing Yemen, which is JD Vance, couldn't even mention that they're doing it for Israel. He talked about they're doing it for Europe. Unless he meant the European settler colony of Israel, then he was he was missing the boat, because this bombing was for Israel, because Ansar Allah, the Houthis, as you pointed out repeatedly, Max, were the only force in the world doing anything to try to stop the genocide in Gaza and try to get Israel to enforce its own ceasefire rather than break it, because Ansar Allah respected the ceasefire and stopped attacking ships when it went into effect. But when Israel resumed its blockade of the Gaza Strip, Ansar Allah said, we're going to target Israeli-tied ships. And that's why the Trump administration decided to bomb Yemen. But not even J.D. Vance, who was in the chat opposed to bombing Yemen, could even admit that that's why the Trump administration was stepping in on Israel's behalf.
Right. So J.D. Vance complained that the U.S. was, again, kind of protecting European trade, but U.S. trade there was very little trade going through the Red Sea. Joe Kent kind of backed him up, Joe Kent being one of the more non-interventionist figures who's working directly under Tulsi Gabbard as counterterror director for the Director of National Intelligence, complained that we don't need to be operating on such a tight timeline. I don't know who set that timeline for them. And they were all overruled. And Pete Hegseth comes in and declares that we've got like F-18 scrambled and F-22s ready and the missiles are incoming, and he provided a missile schedule. Then Mike Waltz celebrates. Let's take a look at some of the, before we get into the political dimensions of the chat. Do I even have it? Well, let's talk about some of the chats here that basically Jeffrey Goldberg only exposed these ones, which are some of the key chats after he came under pressure following Senate hearings on Signalgate, in which the Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratliff claimed that there was no classified information that came across this chat. But these are some of the more revealing ones. Basically, on May 15th, the Trump administration bombed a series of buildings in Sana'a, and Mike Waltz, NSC director, declares VP, referring to JD Vance, building collapsed, had multiple positive ID. Pete Carrillo, the IC, amazing job. And JD Vance is like, what? Typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. Hey, I'm the top missile guy. Who is he? They don't know. We had positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and now it's collapsed. And then JD Vance, who we were told was one of the restrainers, who had initially kind of tried to push back on bombing Yemen, just declared excellent. He said he would push back, but he'd eventually go with the consensus because, there's no room for dissent here. Excellent. Then what do we got?
Mike Waltz types, has the fist emoji, American flag, and then
there it is.
He's so excited.
Yeah. Fire, duh.
That they bombed
fire, America. We blew up an entire residential apartment building in Sana'a. Actually working on getting a report from the ground from that building. I managed to locate it with a Yemeni source, and we'll play some video for you later of the aftermath of other U.S. attacks. But these are residential buildings. Locals complain that there are no military targets there, and that they're just killing, as Israel does in Gaza, killing children, women, families. They blew up an entire building to get the supposed top missile guy. They don't even know who he is. This is what one of the buildings that was bombed on March 23rd looked like, a residential apartment building. 5 were killed in this attack. 14 were wounded. This photo was taken by Mick Wallace, a former EU parliamentarian from Ireland who is in Yemen as part of the international delegation for their Palestine conference. Now here's more. Good job, Pete and your team. That's from Marco Rubio. The team in Mal did a great job as well. Great work, powerful start. That's Stephen Miller, the kind of deportation czar. Then Pete Hegseth declares CENTCOM is on point. More strikes ongoing for hours tonight, but on time, on target, and good readouts so far. Susie Wiles, Steve Witkoff with some dumb emojis, the negotiator. And then finally, great work and effects from TG. Who's TG? Tulsi Gabbard, who, as we documented last week, was for years the leading voice in the Senate, in the House of Representatives against the U.S. bombing Yemen. She called the U.S., Saudi, UK war on Yemen genocidal. And now she's declaring great work and effects as they escalate Biden's Operation Prosperity Guardian, or what should be better known as Operation Genocide Guardian, to include residential buildings deep inside downtown Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, the capital in northern Yemen. It's very revealing stuff.